I've never been a big fan of Halloween, but that year I had no choice but to stay home, alone. My parents went to a late-night Halloween party, and I was left in charge of the house. Around midnight, while I was half asleep on the couch, I heard a slow knock on the front door. At first, I thought it was trick-or-treaters, but when I checked the clock, it was well past the time kids would be out. The knocking grew louder, slower, as if whoever was outside knew I was frozen with fear. Gathering courage, I peered through the peephole. My heart nearly stopped. A man in a cracked pumpkin mask stood there, not moving, not speaking, just staring straight into the door. I turned off the lights, hoping he would leave. Minutes passed. Then, bang! He pounded so hard, the door rattled. I reached for my phone, but the line went dead. The Wi-Fi was gone too. Suddenly, from the back door, I heard the faint sound of the knob turning. He wasn't at the front anymore. I ran upstairs, locking myself in my room. From the window, I could see the man circling the house, dragging something metallic along the siding, making a sharp, scraping noise. My heart pounded as I crouched in the corner, trying not to breathe. Finally, silence. Hours later, I woke up at sunrise, thinking it had all been a nightmare. But when I went downstairs, the front door was wide open. On the floor was a pumpkin, carved into a jagged smile. Inside it, a note. See you next Halloween.
That Halloween night, the house was supposed to be mine. My brother had gone out with his friends to a haunted house, and my parents were at a party. I actually liked the idea of having the place quiet. I could binge horror movies, eat candy, and pretend the world outside didn't exist. But halfway through my second movie, I noticed something odd. The basement light was on. I could see it bleeding out from the crack at the bottom of the door. No one had been down there all day. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe my brother had left it on earlier. But when I muted the TV, I realized the light wasn't just glowing, it was flickering, like someone had just walked by the bulb. I crept to the door, my heart hammering. Slowly, I opened it, and the single bulb swung on its cord as though someone had nudged it moments before. "Hello," I called out. No answer. My voice echoed down the cold cement steps. I convinced myself it was nothing and shut the door tight. Minutes later, as I sat back down, I heard it, the creak of the basement stairs. Heavy, deliberate, like boots pressing into the old wood. I froze, staring at the door. The knob began to jiggle, softly at first, then violently, as if someone on the other side was trying to force it open. I grabbed a kitchen knife and whispered to myself, "It's just the wind, it's just the house settling." But then, I heard it. A whisper through the crack in the door. A voice, low and breathy, "I know you're alone." My stomach dropped. I bolted to the front door, twisting the lock, but it wouldn't budge. The deadbolt was stuck, almost like it had been jammed from inside. My hands shook as I tried again and again. That's when the sound changed. No longer footsteps from the basement. Now they were upstairs. The unmistakable sound of something dragging across the floorboards. I stared up in horror, realizing with icy dread, whatever was in the basement wasn't the only one here. The ceiling above me groaned as the steps grew heavier. Something was pacing directly above my head, in my brother's room. I gripped the knife tighter, whispering a prayer. Then, the basement door burst open behind me. Halloween is when the eerie and the unexpected come alive, but never had it felt as unsettling as this particular night. The absence of children's laughter and darkened homes shrouded the night in a cloak of uncanny calmness. The slight scratching noise pulled me from my textbook, breaking the oppressive silence. At first, I brushed off the sound as the mind's trickery, a noise fabricated from my frayed nerves. However, the persistence of the scratching against the living room window was a harsh reminder that perhaps, not everything was a figment of imagination. Cautiously, I peeled my eyes away from the familiarity of my study notes, and that's when pure, bone-chilling fear took hold. The face pressed against the window did not belong, a spectral entity, with stretched, paper-thin skin and a smile that looked etched there in a ghastly permanent manner, greeted my growing horror. Its eyes, oddly proportioned with pinprick pupils, locked onto mine with a fixation that sent alarms of primal fear ringing in my ears. Stay calm, I repeated to myself, it's just a prank. Surely, some local kid decided to play a Halloween trick. The thought seemed less convincing when tied with the sight before me. Acting with more bravery than I felt, I shot up, flicked the porch light on, and sprinted to the window, ready to confront the trickster. But seeing the empty yard under pooled yellow light did little to calm my pounding heart. The apparition had vanished as if rightly so, it had never been there. Breathing hard, I noticed the reflection of my wide eyes staring back as I pressed my face to the cooling glass, searching for evidence of life, or afterlife, just beyond the immediate world of shadows and suburban fences. Trying desperately to shake off the lingering fear, I returned upstairs, willing my mind back to academia. Yet, each window I passed was a threshold to unseen eyes. Goosebumps trailed my skin, and in moments of intense unease, I felt its gaze. At one point, glancing at the kitchen window reflection, that grin, horrifically familiar, met my eyes again. Whipping around, I was met with the cold clarity of nothingness. That night, sleep was an elusive stranger, much like the phantom visitor. Wrapped in unease, I waited for daybreak, counting each minute until the sun's reassurance would flood through my curtains, hoping it would sweep away the night's fearful illusions.